Let's be honest, most people spend more time talking about their problems than they do solving them. They make their pain a performance, and before long, that pain becomes their identity. You hear it in their words, "I'm just unlucky. People always let me down. Nothing ever works out for me." It sounds innocent, but it's not. Because every time you tell that story, you're reinforcing a belief. That life is happening to you, not for you. The moment you make your problems your identity, you lose power. You stop being the author of your story and become a character in someone else's script. You start collecting reasons why life isn't fair instead of finding ways to make it work. That's the psychological trap of victimhood. It feels comfortable because it asks nothing of you. It gives you sympathy, not strength, and as long as you live there, you'll never grow. Now, I'm not saying to ignore your pain or pretend you're fine when you're not. Growth doesn't come from denial, it comes from ownership. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who rise is simple. Ownership. When something goes wrong, most people look for someone to blame. The economy, their parents, their partner, their past. But the moment you stop pointing outward and start looking inward, that's when life starts to shift. Because what you take responsibility for, you can change. What you keep blaming controls you. You see, life doesn't reward your excuses. It rewards your effort. You can have reasons or you can have results, but you can't have both. The strongest people you know aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who said, "This is my problem. It's mine to face, mine to fix, and mine to learn from." They stopped waiting for someone to understand them and decided to understand themselves. That's a decision, and it's a powerful one, because the second you stop defining yourself by what went wrong, you start discovering what's possible. You shift from asking, "Why me?" to asking, "What can I learn from this?" And that question, that single shift, is the foundation of personal growth. When you stop running from your problems and start meeting them head on, something changes inside you. You begin to realize your pain isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's shaping you, refining you, forcing you to become the kind of person who can handle the life you've been asking for. Think about it. Every challenge you've ever overcome has built a piece of your strength. Every setback, every disappointment, every sleepless night, it all contributed to who you are now. But you had to face it. You had to own it. That's the deal life gives us. Responsibility isn't a burden. It's the gateway to freedom. Because once you accept that everything in your life is your responsibility, you gain control over it. You can't change what you don't own, so stop telling people your problems as if you're powerless. Start talking to yourself like you're capable, because you are. The energy you spend complaining could be the energy that changes your life. You don't need more sympathy. You need more self-belief. You need to remind yourself that no one's coming to save you, but you don't need saving. You just need to decide. Decide to stop identifying with your pain and start identifying with your potential. The truth is, no one else can fix your life. Only you can. But that's not bad news, that's liberation. Because it means the power's been in your hands all along. So take it back. Own your story. Don't be the person who keeps repeating their problems. Be the person who rewrites the ending. Here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. People don't really care about your problems, not because they're cruel, but because they're consumed by their own. Everyone's fighting a battle you can't see. Everyone's carrying some form of pain, fear, or uncertainty that takes up space in their mind. So when you expect the world to stop and sympathize with your story, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It's not that others are heartless. It's that life demands too much of them to carry both your weight and theirs. Now, that might sound harsh at first, but it's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever accept. Because once you stop needing people to care, you start building real strength. You stop waiting for comfort and you start creating change. Think about it. When was the last time someone truly fixed your problems for you? Maybe they listened. Maybe they gave advice, but in the end, it was you who had to take the steps. It was you who had to wake up the next morning and face reality. The world might give you words, but only you can take action. Most people waste years hoping for understanding. They talk, vent, complain, and repeat the same story to anyone who'll listen. But the truth is, every time you do that, you drain your energy. You reinforce your suffering. You're feeding the very thing you want to overcome. Life doesn't respond to noise. It responds to movement. While you're explaining your pain, someone else is using theirs as fuel. They're not talking about how hard it is. They're using that energy to build, to create, to grow. And that's the difference between those who stay stuck and those who rise. It's important to understand this psychologically. The human brain loves certainty and validation. When we tell people our problems, we're seeking comfort, not solutions. We want someone to say, "You're right, it's unfair." And for a moment, that feels good. But that comfort becomes addictive. It tricks you into staying where you are. Because validation without action is just stagnation dressed up as healing. True transformation doesn't come from being understood. It comes from taking responsibility even when no one's watching. You've got to stop expecting the world to understand your struggle. It's not their job. It's yours to understand, to navigate, to master. When you realize that no one's coming to fix it for you, you stop wasting energy on disappointment. You redirect that energy into momentum. You start thinking differently. If no one's going to solve this for me, then I'll become the person who can. That's when you shift from powerless to powerful. You stop waiting for compassion and start commanding respect. Not because you demand it, but because you've earned it through growth. And here's what's interesting. The moment you stop needing people to care, you become someone people admire. Why? Because strength is magnetic. Independence is inspiring. When others see that you've stopped seeking pity and started creating progress, they start paying attention. You don't need to talk about your pain anymore. Your results will do it for you. There's freedom in not needing anyone's sympathy. It means you're not tied to other people's emotional approval. It means your mood, your confidence, your sense of worth, they're all self-generated. And that's real power. Because when your peace no longer depends on other people's understanding, you become unstoppable. So stop telling people your problems expecting them to care. Start caring enough about yourself to take action. Because while everyone else is busy surviving their own storms, you can be the one who learns to walk through yours and come out stronger. Pain is inevitable. It's the one thing every human being on this planet has in common. But the difference between those who crumble under it and those who rise from it comes down to one thing: how they use it. Most people see pain as something to escape, something unfair, something that shouldn't have happened. But the truth is, pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. It's the raw material of transformation if you know how to use it. When you stop complaining about what hurts and start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You move from suffering to strength. We live in a world where people have learned to express pain more than they've learned to process it. They talk about how hard life is, how people wronged them, how opportunities slipped away. But what they don't realize is that every time they repeat that story, they're reliving the wound instead of rewriting it. You can't build power while holding on to pity. The two cannot coexist. You either feed your pain or you fuel your progress. And every day through your choices, you're deciding which one you'll do. Pain at its core is feedback. It's life's way of saying something needs to change. In your habits, your thinking, your direction, or your expectations. When you stop avoiding it and start using it, pain becomes the ultimate motivator. It sharpens your awareness. It shows you what matters. It forces you to evolve. Think about any major breakthrough you've had in your life. Chances are it came from a painful moment of failure, a rejection, a loss, something that forced you to see yourself and the world differently. That's how growth works. The greatest version of you doesn't come from comfort. It's forged in the fire of discomfort. But there's a key here. You can't just experience pain and expect transformation. You have to decide that it won't go to waste. Most people suffer and then stop there. They don't extract the meaning. They don't ask what that experience can give them. But the people who turn pain into power understand that every challenge contains a gift. Maybe it taught you patience. Maybe it forced you to toughen up. Maybe it showed you who's truly in your corner. If you can find that meaning, you stop being a victim of your story and become the author of your comeback. This is where emotional mastery begins. When you no longer see pain as punishment, you begin to use it consciously. You channel it into your craft, your goals, your discipline. You use it to build something meaningful. Some of the most driven, passionate, unstoppable people you'll ever meet aren't that way because life was easy for them. They're that way because they refuse to let pain be the end of their story. They let it become the foundation of a new one. You see, transformation isn't about avoiding struggle, it's about integrating it. Every setback, every disappointment, every heartbreak, these are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're being prepared for something greater. You're being tested not to prove your weakness, but to reveal your strength. So stop telling people how bad it hurts. Show them what you're doing with the hurt. Let your results speak. Let your energy rise above explanation. The pain you're feeling right now could be the very thing that builds the strength you'll need later. Don't waste your suffering. Use it. Let it sculpt you into someone wiser, more grounded, more capable. Because the people who rise to greatness aren't the ones who never experienced pain. They're the ones who decided that nothing they've gone through would be wasted. There's a power in silence that most people underestimate. In a world obsessed with noise, where everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated, there's something profoundly strong about the person who doesn't announce every struggle, every move, every feeling. Healing in silence doesn't mean you're pretending to be fine. It means you've reached a level of maturity where you no longer need an audience to justify your growth. You understand that the most meaningful transformations happen behind closed doors, in the moments when no one's watching, when it's just you and your willpower. When you choose to heal in silence, you're not suppressing your emotions. You're mastering them. You're learning to process instead of perform. Most people talk about what they're going through because they're looking for someone to make it easier. But what if it's not supposed to be easy? What if the struggle itself is the training ground for the life you're meant to live? You see, healing quietly builds a foundation of strength that can't be shaken. Because when you don't rely on external validation, you stop needing approval to keep moving forward. You start to trust yourself deeply, fully. There's something sacred about the process of internal growth. Think about nature. The seed doesn't grow roots in public. It doesn't announce its transformation. It breaks, it stretches, it fights through the darkness underground, and only when it's strong enough does it rise into the light. Your journey is no different. The quiet seasons, the ones where it feels like no one understands you, where you're rebuilding yourself piece by piece. Those are the moments when your real power is forming. The world might not see it now, but it will. Because true growth always reveals itself through results, not words. When you heal in silence, your victories speak louder. You stop trying to convince people of your progress. You embody it. You walk differently. You think differently. You carry a calm confidence that doesn't need explanation. And people notice. Not because you told them, but because your energy has changed. That's the kind of transformation that lasts. Because when you build yourself in silence, you're building on self-discipline, not applause. And self-discipline doesn't vanish when the crowd disappears. We live in a time where everyone wants instant recognition. Post your pain, share your process, demand support. But when everything becomes a performance, the growth becomes shallow. True power is subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek permission. It simply becomes undeniable. When you heal privately, you're reclaiming your energy. The same energy that would have been spent explaining, defending, or seeking sympathy. You're channeling it into progress, into mastery, into becoming someone you're proud of. And here's the beautiful part. When you finally step into the light, when you start achieving, creating, living with purpose, people will wonder how you did it. They'll ask, where did this strength come from? And you'll smile because you know, it came from the nights you kept going when no one was cheering. It came from the silence that forced you to listen to your own voice. It came from the decision to let your growth speak instead of your pain. Healing in silence doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means elevating yourself. It's choosing to focus on becoming rather than being seen. It's the discipline of inner work. The kind of work that doesn't need to be announced because it's evident in how you live,